So what we have here is the original master cylinder and brake booster for this car, or at least original so far as we know. Master cylinder here, brake booster here. There's plenty of room to work around these, but we're going to have to uninstall this entire assembly from the inside of the car. The very first step involved on this is going to be disconnecting the brake booster from the brake pedal inside of the car. In order to do this, we need to come down underneath the dashboard, and up here what we see is that the brake booster has a round arm that sticks out, and there's a cotter pin that goes through right on this end. So that cotter pin is going to have its legs bent back and then slid out so that we can then pop this ring that's part of the brake booster off of the brake pedal assembly. Alright, so that was a tight squeeze, but I eventually got in there, and what you'll see is that the washer and the cotter pin have both been removed. And so if I look up now at the brake pedal, we can see here that the arm that goes to the brake booster is now free to slide off of the brake pedal. Although it won't come quite all the way off yet, we'll probably need to loosen up the brake booster at the firewall to get it completely disconnected. Okay, so the next step involved in this is going to be to disconnect the brake lines from the master cylinder right here. So in order to do that, I'm going to use this 1/2-inch wrench to be able to disconnect this. However, when I pop this out, brake fluid's going to come spilling out of both the master cylinder and out of here. So I want to make sure to have something to catch that, because that brake fluid is really nasty stuff. So what I've done is set up a catch pan, just an oil pan, right down underneath the car here. And that should hopefully catch anything that drips out of there. But I'll also have another container on hand in the car when I take these off. So next step I'll do is disconnect those lines. Alright, so now I've disconnected the front and rear brake lines from the master cylinder, and actually no fluid came out whatsoever. So that would indicate that we've had a leak that's come out of the pipes somewhere in there. Hopefully it's not in the brake lines. If it is, then we're going to have to run new brake lines on here. Otherwise, it's just part of the faulty existing drum brake system that we're going to be removing anyway. Alright, one other thing that we need to do in order to remove the booster is to remove the main vacuum line that goes into the brake booster right here. And that just pops right out. There's just a rubber seal on here, and it may need to work loose a little bit, and there we go, that's popped out, that's removed. So at this point, the only thing holding the booster master cylinder assembly in the vehicle is just 4 bolts that go through the firewall. And so in order to remove the nuts on those bolts, I'm going to have to get up inside of the dashboard. And it's going to be pretty tight up there, so I won't be able to record that. Alright, so all the nuts have now been removed that held the brake booster onto the firewall, and once those nuts were removed, the whole assembly wiggles a little bit so you can actually pop the ring from the booster off of the brake pedal assembly. So that's now all been disconnected. Incidentally, all those nuts were 9/16. So with everything all disconnected here now, I should just be able to pick up the brake booster and master cylinder and just slide it right out of the assembly here. And that all came out fairly easily. Alright, so what we have here is the brake booster and master cylinder assembly, and this was the kit from caddydaddy.com. And this also has a proportioning valve put on here to control the amount of fluid pressure so that we can do a front and rear disc brake setup, which was different from the 4-wheel drum setup that's on this car. So what I'm going to do is take this assembly here, and here we can see this is the ring that goes on the gas pedal, and here's the studs that go through the firewall. And I'm going to put it through this hole on the firewall here, just where we came out, and it should just slide in very easily. This may tend to get hung up on things like the brake lines that are currently in place. And there we go. Alright, so now that the booster has been put through the firewall, we can actually see here. I can angle this up. We can see where that new brass ring has gone around the brake pedal. I had to reach in and do that. And then I'm just going to put the nuts back on the studs here, and then this whole assembly will be installed, and then all we have to do is connect the brake lines. As you may be able to see here, the existing brake lines do not line up with the attachment points on the proportioning valve, which can be seen as the brass item underneath the master cylinder. Therefore, the brake lines are going to need to be modified. And so at this point, new fittings will have to be put on and/or extensions.